distance, this blue marble. I love sharing this story because it's so crazy. This blue marble suddenly rise. It was an Earthrise up from the moon. And he said, there it was, this oasis of life, suspended in the darkness of space, the vacuum of space, such a hostile environment around it, right? And there it rose. And he had these big gloves on. And he put up one hand and he blocked out the entire Earth, right, from the lunar surface. And he's like, all that I know, all that I've learned, all the borders, all the people, and I'm blocking it out with one hand.
James Fox, welcome. Thank you so much for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me on.
You have your new documentary, The Program, I believe.
Yes, it drops. It dropped today.
Dude, that's
dropping
crazy.
Right now.
How about the timing, dude? You couldn't have planned that better with the goddamn fucking...
I literally had an
flying.
Air Force colonel text me and he goes, so what's up with the promotion? You managed to get a full-on alien invasion on the release of your film.
That's perfect.
How did you coordinate that?
Hey, man, there's just larger forces at play, so that's all that is.
Yeah, no, I welcome it. I mean, you know, within reason.
Yeah, for sure. So
I don't want people to panic.
Yeah, well, dude, so to be honest, I was watching the documentary last night, and I was just like on the way to a holiday party, and I got really stoned from a vape pen. I haven't been smoking like that, and I was just like launched, and I started watching your documentary, and I just started bugging out. I started thinking about just the vastness of the cosmos, and just kind of the the inevitability of there's got to be some other sort of consciousness or life form out there. And it's like, I was bugging. I was like with my wife and I was like, dude, turn it off. I'm freaking out right now.
At what point did you turn it off? When we got to that, the NASA conference or before?
It was before that, but we were, I just started thinking about it because it was all these like, there's these like Congress meetings and all these people. And it was like the line that, I don't know if it was from that or someone said it, but it's like, why would these people put their credibility at risk for no reason?
No. Yeah. No, come on. There's a there.
Yeah. So it's like, and so, just tell us a little bit about the documentary. How did you get into all that? And like, what kind of like launched you into identifying the UAPs now, not UFOs?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So UFOs, unidentified flying objects, and it went to UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon. And then it because they're coming in and out of the oceans as well, they changed it to unidentified anomalous phenomenon. That's where we're at right now.
To me, it's like they're just making it harder and harder to say to obscure the truth. That's what I'm coming. It's like you unidentified alarm. I can't even say it. So I'm like, now I'm out of the race.
And UFOs had a bit of baggage. There was always sort of that knee-jerk reaction when you mentioned UFO. So I think they wanted to kind of, steer away from that.
Yeah, it was stoner stuff.
Yeah, get into the UAP stuff. And it was really funny. I think it was today or it was last night. Senator Schumer, Senate Majority Leader Schumer, is being like hammered in the press. I don't know if you've seen it yet or not. And the guy's like, you don't know what it is. Therefore, it's a UAP. You wrote the legislation. Don't you remember? Like, he's like, well, we don't know what they are. Therefore, it's a UAP.
He was probably so blazed when he wrote the legislation.
They want to say drones because UAP has people freaking out.
Charged, yeah.
And it's so funny too because they're going, well, we have absolutely no idea what it is, but everyone's fine. Everything's safe. There's nothing to worry about here. Sure.
So there are just like tons of drones popping up and everyone's freaking out because nobody knows whose they are.
I initially, on first look, I was like, oh, it sounds, conventional because, UAP demonstrated technology that's sort of light years advanced from anything we have. But then I started doing a little deeper dive and I'm hearing reports that they're evading the military, radar, FLIR, they go dark. They have a loiter time of hours and hours and hours. Then the Coast Guard reported being followed over the ocean. I mean, it just something weird is going on. I don't know exactly what it is or who's behind it, but people are scratching their heads.
That would be crazy if it truly was like an alien consciousness, but this was their like mall kiosk of them like flying around holiday toys and being like, check this out. And everyone's freaking out.
Watch us freak out the humans. Look at them run.
So just take us through. You don't have to obviously give the whole documentary away, but it's like, how did you get into that? And like to what depth does this whole phenomenon go? Because like you were saying, when I grew up, it was just like aliens, and you'd get a poster with black lights of an alien being like, peace, man.
Right.
But yeah, the more you hear about it, like they just came out of nowhere. Like the government, I feel like a couple years ago was like, oh, by the way, aliens are probably real. And everyone was just like, what the fuck? What are you guys doing right now?
Yeah, well, I mean, so how that came about, I'll back up a little bit and tell you how I got into it. And I had a father who was a journalist. He was a quadriplegic with MS. And so at a very early age, I was traveling around the world with him because I was his legs, I was his chauffeur, I was his nurse, his secretary, we just traveled together. He was a mainstream journalist. We interviewed people like Stephen Hawking and race car legend Dan Gurney, and just did a lot of cool stuff together. And so I had a sneak preview into journalism pretty early on in my life through my dad. And then I had a high school buddy of mine that when we graduated, we were 18 and we flew to Europe and we bought a used car, Renee Harris, and we bought a used car, drove from London down to Portugal. We were really close, man. We were like brothers. And then we parted ways for like a year or two as things done. He had different things going on, whatever. And then I, reunited with him, and he was suddenly into this whole UFO thing. And I was like, oh God, Renee, man. Like I remember thinking, I'm gonna have to cut my best friend loose. Yeah. Like this is really unfortunate, And he was talking about Roswell and UFO crash and alien bodies, and I honestly thought he'd lost his mind. I mean, I really did.
Yeah. What year was this roughly?
Probably 93.
Yeah.
Maybe 94, 93.
You were looked at as crazy back then for it.
And so anyway, I was apprenticing at a video production company, and I went into work, and I was telling my buddy Richard Van Sickle about it, and I had really looked up to. He was 10 years my senior and really professional, great guy. And I was like, oh man, my really good friend is like suddenly gone off on the deep end. He's into UFOs and aliens and spaceships that crashed in Roswell. And my buddy Richard looks at me and goes, you didn't know about Roswell? I was like, how would I know about Roswell? No, I don't know about Roswell. How would I know about Roswell? He goes, well, the government actually admitted that they did recover a fly. Really? He goes, yeah, check it out. Like they actually admitted it. And then the very people that were involved in the cover-up came forward on camera before they died saying it was original. The original press release was correct. So I was like, oh my gosh. I started looking into it, went to a few conferences, met a few military guys, and I was like, God, maybe there's something going on here. Mm-hmm. And so I told my dad, I was like, I was doing video production at the time, and I was doing PSAs and things of that sort. And I was like, I think I'm going to do a documentary on UFOs. And my dad was like, oh my God, please, son, don't do that. He literally said it's a dead end street. There's nothing to it. You're wasting your life. Please. And not only did he was begging me, he had all of my other members, because I was born in England, of the family, writing me letters saying, your dad is very concerned about you.
Oh, you were getting like English letters about it.
Don't do it.
That'd be a tough, just like a scolding. Just like, I've been reading Bertrand Russell's autobiography, and there's a lot of like English letters, and they're pretty. Yeah, they'll get you, man.
Anyway,
a stinging letter.
My grandmother used to call me a rapscallion, you hooligan, you skiver, breaking into the house at all hours of the morning. Yeah, she was. So hilarious.
Your whole family's
so
like,
my family's like,
do it.
Please reconsider. Your dad's very concerned, and I just was like, well, I'm of course being a Taurus, I'm a bit stubborn. And I just went all in, and I think it took me about 4 years. And I was at the end of it. I was like, I'm never doing another UFO doc ever again. But I sold it to Discovery Channel. It aired on Learning Channel, and I kind of got the last laugh. And then I got invited to Russia, and because I got invited to Russia, which I ended up going in the late '90s and meeting with generals and cosmonaut Pavel Popovich. And then I got an invitation to meet with Mercury astronaut Gordon Cooper, because I've been trying to get interviews with him on my first doc. And then all of a sudden I was like, well, I guess I'm doing another doc, because I got all these amazing interviews and I went to Russia and stuff. And so I did another one, and that one was called Out of the Blue. And that took me 5 years.
Okay.
And I finished that and I said, never again. I remember my partner was in a fetal position crying, and his wife's like, you're killing my husband. Like, stop.
What was wrong with him?
We were pushing each other so hard, so hard to do a good doc, right? Mm-hmm. It's like you just get to the end and I'd been there myself. You're broken.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, I guess the documentary's done, because I didn't really feel like it was where it needed to be. But we were all out of steam. We were out of money. I pushed my partner to the brink of death. And his wife was screaming at me, so I was like, all right. So then we sold that to NBC Universal, and it aired as a 2-hour special on the Sci-Fi Channel. And then 3 years later, I owned the rights again, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna pick this back up and make it to the film I always wanted it to be. So I spent a couple more years on Out of the Blue, and I released that as a director's cut. And in the process of that, I broke a big story with the governor of Arizona, Fife Symington, who there's a very famous Phoenix Lights case that happened in March 13th, 1997. And the governor poo-pooed it at the time. And then 10 years later, I met up with him. It's like, why did you poo-poo it? You had one of your aides dressed up as an alien. He came and mocked the whole thing, and all your, constituents were upset. And he admitted that he saw it too. So then that happened and exploded in the headlines.
What did he see? Oh, he saw the lights.
Oh, he saw a craft. He saw a big, all connected boomerang shape. He said it must have been a mile from wingtip to wing across because it was so big.
Why did he poo-poo it though?
He said that there was overwhelming fear, like people were just freaking out. He contacted the local Air Force Base, Luke Air Force Base. He contacted the Pentagon, and they all shrugged their shoulders, according to him, and said, "We don't know what the hell that thing was."
What?
So anyway, I broke that story, and then I got. I hope you don't mind. I'm giving you a longer version of this.
No, I like it, dude. Yeah.
So I broke that story. And it catapulted me into the limelight. I mean, we were on all the talk shows, Larry King Live, with the governor, and I thought, gosh, this would be a really good time to capitalize on this attention because media coverage is very fleeting, and it only happens. You're lucky if it happens once in a lifetime. So I was like, hey, let me capitalize on this, and let me do an event at the National Press Club. And so I did with my friend Leslie Kane, and it was 2007, and we flew in 14 military and government officials from 7 countries and held an event at the National Press Club, and I shot the whole thing on HD, and then I ended up making a movie about that, which I sold to A&E called I Know What I Saw, and it was a 2-hour History Channel special. So then I was just like, I'm done with UFOs. Like I'm done.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've learned is never say never, because I've said that so many times in the past. But then I stepped away from it for a little while. I did a film on the BP oil spill in 2010. And then
has that ever gotten cleaned up? Are the waters good now from that?
I don't know if they're gonna realize the long-term environmental impacts, because they were pumping Corexit 5,000 feet down into the oil, trying to keep it like from surfacing, because they get fined for all the surface oil.
Oh, really?
So if they hide it with the Corexit, which they'd never done subsea injection before, so they did that. And
they just blanket it down on the bottom. Basically,
they dumped more Corexit into the Gulf ever before, more than they'd ever done anywhere. It was a huge lab test in the Gulf. Yeah. Oh yeah.
I've been personally boycotting BP forever since that.
So
I won't get the gas.
So there's only 2 times where I've almost been killed. I've been threatened to be killed in all my filmmaking years. One of them was when I did the BP oil spill film. There was a fisherman. He was head of fisheries for a number of different states. And he met with me secretly, and he was giving me photographs of the fish impact that it was having on these species from the Corexit and the oil. And they had like cysts and boils and just disgusting. Fuck. He gave me these photographs, and he goes, "You reveal my identity, boy, I'm going to hunt you down and slit your throat. Do we have an understanding?" I said, "Yes, sir, we do." And he wasn't kidding. He was like, he goes, "Because I run the fisheries, I'm shooting myself in the foot along with a lot of other people, but I can't in good conscience let the people eat this stuff not knowing what's going on, like turn a big lab experiment." The other time I almost got shot in the face is when I was making Moment of Contact. I don't know if you ever saw that film. Mm-mm. It's about a UFO crash in Brazil. I was there with my buddy Marco Leal for like 12 years on and off, and I made a film called Moment of Contact. It was released in 2022. Yeah, late 2022. And we tracked down a guy who'd been hiding for 26 years, who allegedly was driving the car during the second capture of a live alien. I know it sounds nuts. I'm with you.
Explain that. I don't know what you're talking about.
It was a UFO crash that took place in 1996 in Varginha, Brazil. Mm-hmm. I had been looking into it for 12 years. I didn't believe it when I first heard about it. In fact, I was making my first UFO documentary, my second UFO documentary out of the blue when I heard about the crash. It happened in 96. I was making it in like 99, 2000. That's when I started. I heard about it, but I was like, that's impossible. They don't have a UFO crash and live aliens walking through the town. No way. So I took 10 years before I even, almost 10 years before I would even, actually, it was over 10 years before I would even look into it. And then I ended up spending about 12 years. But in any case, a UFO was spotted in trouble. It was a cylindrical shape object, like a cigar. It was like a aluminum kind of shape, no wings, no visible means of propulsion. It had, according to the witnesses that I interviewed, and they're all on camera, it had a gash in the back of it and it had sort of a white vapor coming out the backside, and it was definitely in trouble because all the people who claimed to have seen it said it was struggling to stay in the air. And then it eventually crashed. 2 days later in the town of Virginia, just a few miles away, people reported these strange creatures. And then there were two, according to the authorities and military people, that information that had leaked out, and the researchers locally, 2 or 3 of the creatures were captured. And the second capture was involving a police officer by the name of Marco Cherez, and the driver of that car, Eric Lopes, and Eric Cherez died within a couple of weeks of touching the creature. He manhandled it and took it to the local hospital. He got a weird infection and then died.
Damn, dude,
Yeah,
really?
Yeah, it's true.
Hey,
Do I take
no
a break
alien
there?
music.
Sorry about that.
So the only other living witness to that second capture was the driver, Eric Lopes, who's also a police officer.
And he was just driving. The other guy apprehended.
Yeah, he was actually on duty that night, and they were told him be on the lookout for something strange, something real strange. They didn't say live aliens or anything like that. They just be on the lookout. We're looking for something. So he calls his buddy, Marco, who was actually off that night, Marco Cherez, and he's like, "Hey, I got this weird assignment tonight. Like they're saying there's something weird on the loose, or I don't know. You want to come with me?" So they team up. He jumps in the car. Off they go. They see it. It ran across the road in front of them, slammed the brakes on. Marco jumps out of the car, grabs the thing, puts it in the back of the car, takes it to Humanitas Hospital.
What'd they say it looked like? Did they
It was brown. You could look it up. Virginia creature. It had a big head, big red eyes. It had brown, oily skin, frail, weak, struggling, suffering.
Yeah.
All the witnesses said. And then Marco Cherez had this like oily, greasy. He was like rubbing his body down with rubbing alcohol afterwards, and then he got this infection. We interviewed the doctors that worked on him. He died. And they couldn't explain it. They were like, they'd never seen anything like that bacteria ever. Somehow his body just had no defense against it, and he died. So the only living witness to that incident, that particular capture, is Eric Lopes.
Mm-hmm.
So
the driver.
Yes. So I got in touch with the mayor. They actually interviewed the mayor of the town, this guy Verge, and he's like, "Hey, is there anything I can do to help you guys? I believe this happened. I want to get the story out. I think the world needs to know." I was like, "Yeah, there's something you could do. Could you help me locate this guy, Eric Lopes? He's been MIA for 26 years.
What?
And he was apparently driving the car." So we go to his house, really spooky, right? The guy's off the beaten path. Get to his house, and that's the creature. That's it.
Jesus, man.
Yep, that's it. Mm-hmm.
Oh, fuck.
Yep, that was witnessed in broad daylight by 3 girls, Valkyria, Liliani, and Katya. 2 of them are sisters. Broad daylight. They got within 10 feet of that creature in broad daylight.
Damn.
Yeah, it was crazy. So anyway, we get to Eric Lopes' house, and he I don't speak Portuguese, but he was like apparently telling everyone, get the hell out of there, or he's going to start spraying bullets.
What?
And he said it like 3 or 4 times, and then I looked over at the guy, the translator, and he looked at me, and he was just like this. Eric Lopes was looking out the window right above me, and I was looking at his eyes going, God, that guy's seen something. I don't know, man. He had looked like he was so burdened with something. You see it in his eyes. I remember I'd never looked into someone's eyes that had that profound, like he was just burdened with something really
Did he look
intense.
like afraid, or he just looked kind of like just distant?
He looked like he'd been shouldering something so profound, so deep, so deeply, profoundly disturbing, and that he couldn't share it with anybody. That's what it looked like.
Oh, man.
But anyway, it's confused. But anyway, that was a second time. Only 2 times where I actually was like
Threatened to be shot. Okay, wow, okay.
Yeah,
Jesus
threatened to be
Christ,
shot.
man. That's crazy. So you didn't even get to talk to the guy? He wouldn't talk?
Well, he funny enough, it's really funny actually, because he said, and you could see it in the movie, when we rolled up, he's like, if you're here to talk about the ET, Eric won't talk. And he referred to himself in the third person, which is weird. And then it was like, Eric's not here. And then it's like, I'm going to start shooting right now, bullets out of here. And I kept asking, I didn't know what he was saying. So I kept trying to get a question in like to my translator, and the translator looking at me like, dude, just chill, you know. And then finally he looked at me like, it's time to go. Like that look, you don't need to speak any language to get that look.
Yeah.
It was like, we're leaving now, period. And I was like, shit, what's going on? Anyway, so yeah, that was.
What do you think happened to him? You think he got like inhabited or something?
Just imagine for a moment if he really was the driver that was involved in the capture of a live alien. Okay, I'm not saying believe it or don't believe it, but if it did happen, and then your best friend dies, and now the family and the world wants to know what happened, and you can't talk, and because your life has been threatened, right?
Yeah.
So you have to shoulder that burden for 26 years. Right?
Yeah.
So if it happened, you can imagine how disturbing that was. And, you know, he's military intelligence, so, you know, he's armed to the teeth, I'm sure. And I would talk to some other fellow Brazilian UFO researchers, Uberajaro Rodrigues, this guy Peccaccini, and he's like, oh, yeah, back in 26 years ago, we wouldn't go near a globe. So I was like, why not? He goes, everybody knew that guy was packing. He was just going to open fire. I was like, well, now you guys tell me. Jesus Christ, I went to the guy's house. I probably almost got shot in the face.
That would have sucked so bad, dude.
That would have been a real bummer.
Oh, that would have sucked.
Yeah. So anyway, coming off the heels of that, I, because I did a film called The Phenomenon, right, which covers the phenomenon from the 40s up to relatively modern day, 2017, 2020, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I naturally, the natural progression would have been to go from the phenomenon to the program, which is out now. But I had unfinished business with this alleged UFO crash case. And so I went back to Brazil like a fifth time, and I filmed Moment of Contact, right? And then at the very end of it all, and I totally believed it. In fact, I remember taking one of the audio guys, he lived in Rio de Janeiro, and this guy Guy, and he goes, oh, yeah, we heard about that story back 26 years ago. Nobody believes it. It's like, you know, kind of like what Roswell, you know.
For sure, yeah.
Then I took him on all the shoots, and he was like, holy shit, this happened, you know. And I said, yeah, I wouldn't waste 12 years of my time if I didn't.
Yeah.
So at the last week or so of filming in Brazil, a flight control officer with the Brazilian military, because flight control, fire department, police, they're all connected to the military. He came forward and said, yeah, I saw the United States Air Force plane come in and land in Campinas, and then sent two.
What did you say? What?
So it was confirmed the United States Air Force was involved with this UFO crash case.
Okay.
That the United States Air Force flew in to a place called Campinas. And then from Campinas, I know, right? I know, Varginha and Campinas, right? Doesn't get any better than that. Can you believe it? I know.
Sorry. I thought my mind was just making tricks.
I thought you might have known about this case. I'm sorry.
Campinas and
Joe Rogan talked about it for a year.
Campinas.
Yeah.
I wish I knew about
I know.
So there's an alien invasion.
Well, so
they probably thought it was the best place ever. They're like, dude, we got to go to Campinas,
Virginia. I know, you can't make this stuff up. I know.
Okay,
it's
so
really
what
funny.
happened?
So the last time I was there after 12 years of filming on and off, a guy comes forward, and he was with flight control with the Brazilian government, military. And he's like, yeah, I was on duty that night, and I saw, this is January 20th, 1996, and I saw USAF come in. And I was like, USAF? United States Air Force, USAF. Flight come in, and he didn't have authorization to land. So he told some folks, like, I can't let this guy land. You need authorization. And then a higher up stepped in the room and said, let him land.
Yeah.
So he goes, yeah, this thing landed. Then one or two helicopters were unloaded, and they were flown to Varginha. They picked up some stuff, came back to the Campinas, loaded it on the plane, and the United States Air Force plane, back to the United States. Yeah. So that was when I became aware of the fact that, wow, there probably is a crash retrieval program going on. So when I started doing the program, the film that's out now, it was almost personal for me, right? Because I had no idea. Like, I was on Joe Rogan talking about Moment of Contact in April of 2023. Well, in July of 2023, the highest level intel officer, David Grush, testified under oath to a bipartisan group of lawmakers that there is a crash retrieval program, and he found it.
Damn.
Yeah. So so the program kind of covers this unprecedented push for transparency on what the intel agencies really know about the phenomenon, right?
What kicked that off? I was curious about that. Like, if this is my thing. If things are like top secret, you have
Yeah.
these giant kind of like, mechanisms of power controlling and hiding things. I do find it funny that they're like, you swear you're telling the truth, and they're like, that you fucking got me, dude. Yes, I pinky promise. Like, it's a weird system we still do.
Yeah, well,
Where it's like, you better tell the truth, and we're like, you got me.
So people think that the government suddenly had an epiphany and decided to be more transparent on the UFO phenomenon. That's not what happened.
Yeah, I doubt that.
Yeah, right. What happened was there were a couple of intel insiders, Christopher Mellon being one of them, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence, along with Lou Elizondo and a handful of others, just small handful, that protested because of excessive secrecy. They found a loophole and walked some evidence from the Pentagon out on the front page of the New York Times, and that happened in December of 2017.
Okay.
So they can't put the genie back in the bottle, right?
Yeah.
So more people keep coming forward now, more people coming forward. And then Congress started getting wind. They were having behind doors meetings with some of these witnesses, and they were like, ooh, there's a there. Wow. And then they had the first congressional hearing by a guy named Andre Carson, Congressman Andre Carson. That was 2022. That had a hint of a crash retrieval program that was revealed through a memo, the Davis-Wilson memo. Then they had congressional hearings in July of 2023, and that's when it was all out. David Grush said, yeah, we have a crash retrieval program. And then recently, just a month ago, we had more congressional hearings, which I attended, and Lou Elizondo, who ran ATIP, or was one of the members on ATIP, he confessed under oath that there is a crash retrieval program.
So they have been going around and scooping these things up. So there's
Yes.
things. So what do you say to people who are like, it's just super advanced military technology they're hiding from everybody?
Well, if that's the case, that would be an even bigger story because somebody has kept it secret for over 80 years.
Yeah,
so,
true,
wow,
yeah.
okay, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
These things exhibit a technology that's just so beyond anything that we have in our arsenal.
So, and what are the examples of like the technology that we can't really wrap our heads around?
So you have objects that can hover without displaying any kind of visible means of propulsion. They can accelerate from a standstill to out of sight in the blink of an eye, right-angle turns at high speeds, no sonic boom, no air disturbance, very little noise. Sometimes you'll hear a slight buzzing or humming noise, but that's it within certain proximity, some of the witnesses. And they fly rings around our fastest jets. I mean, like they make a mockery of our fastest jets. I mean, you could just talk to David Fravor about that, 2003 off the coast of San Diego. So, and I think the big secret is they don't know what it is. I mean, they know it's engineered, right? They know it's technological, but there's a psychic component to it as well. So it would be very difficult for any governing body to come forward and say, hey, ladies and gentlemen, my fellow Americans, it has been brought to our attention that there are structured craft of unknown origin whizzing around with impunity. They fly rings around our fastest jets, so we don't know who they are, where they come from, and if they turn out to be hostile, we have no visible means of defense against them. Thank you and good night.
Yeah, true. Everyone would be like, fuck this.
Everyone would be like, no! That's why right now, when they don't know what these drones are, they're calling them drones because drones is a little less scary than UAP, right? So they're calling them drones, but they're saying, you have nothing to fear, and yet we don't know what the hell they are. So that's a little strange, because how could you say what something isn't when you don't know what it is?
Yeah, true. Isn't it funny how the people we love most are often the hardest to shop for? Luckily, there's one gift that everyone on your list is sure to enjoy, an Aura digital picture frame. Named #1 by Wirecutter, Aura frames make it incredibly easy to share unlimited photos and videos directly from your phone to the frame. And when you give an Aura frame as a gift, you can personalize and preload it with a thoughtful message and photos using the Aura app, making it an ideal present for long-distance loved ones. It's a gift so special, they'll use it every day. I mean, they want me to talk about the hunt for the perfect gift. Yeah, man, it is hard getting the perfect gift, and there's nothing better and selfless than just, giving a photo of yourself to a person. No, you're giving a photo. I'm joking around. It's the holidays. Everyone's having a tough time. Come on, please don't drop us, dude. All of our corporate sponsors are mad right now. Guys, it is nice your mother loves you so much, and your father, they just want to see your face. Just give them a picture of you and your brothers, dude, back when you were young and beautiful before you became old and decrepit. Yeah, so, I love it. My mom has one. She loves seeing it. Hey, Bill, I'm recording advertisements, dude. I know you broke your leg, but please. Yeah, so very good. Hey, guys, and if that's not personal enough, you can even upload a video message to play on the frame as soon as they plug it in. So the first thing they hear is your voice and how much you love them. Save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver mat frames by using promo code MSSP at checkout. That's AURA frames.com, promo code MSSP. This deal is exclusive to listeners, so get yours now in time for the holidays. Terms and conditions apply. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. How do you stay cozy during the winter months? For some, wrapping up in a blanket with a mug of hot chocolate or watching a movie with the family is the best way to spend the month of December. Therapy is a great way to bring yourself some comfort that never goes away even when the season changes. I mean, what a beautiful message. Because your family will go away, but you can always do therapy. That is beautiful. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched up with a licensed therapist and switch therapist anytime for no additional charge. Find comfort this December with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/MSSP today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/MSSP. And guys, it is the holiday times. A lot of people get sad and freak out. Maybe you're an advertiser and you're saying, this ad should have been a fucking minute long. So maybe I'm just wasting time and trying to get to a minute. But guys, it is the holidays. People get sad. I get cheerful. I get full of holiday cheer. I love it. So I'm not sad during the holidays. I like the holidays, but some of you get very sad. So do what you need to do in terms of finding your supports. All right. You know what we all could use a little more of? Getting off asses. I have no problem with that sentence. With bold flavors and a crisp, refreshing kick, Mountain Dew gives you that extra push to get moving and feel like you're on top of the world, a world where the sun is always shining. Your crew's ready for action, and unforgettable adventures are just around the corner. Call out your favorite flavor. I mean, obviously, guys, I'm classic. I'm keeping it cool on this one. My corporate partners were a little upset. So, I just want to keep it all business right now. This is a Mountain Dew. Check that out. Some of the verbiage is great tasting, refreshing, and has a citrus kick, which is very nice. Talk about what game/activity you'd play with friends. Honestly, I like to talk about that. I thought I was being pretty open and candid, with my branding partners, talking about what I was doing with my friends, but I don't know if they like my candidness or my candid nature. So I'm just going to say, me and my friends, we drink Mountain Dew, we hype each other up, we watch the game with each other, and then our wives come over, and I'm not going to talk about wife swapping or anything like that with our corporate partners, but we just have a good time, dude. Whatever, man. Just fucking do you, bro. The mountain is calling. You should answer. Grab your friends. Grab an ice-cold Mountain Dew wherever refreshing beverages are sold, and do the do. Yeah, it is deeply unsettling to be like, because, human beings just have this idea we're kind of like top dog in the universe.
Yeah,
so it does threaten. I mean, I feel kind of weird. Like, what do you think I have two questions.
Yes.
What's the telepathic element you're talking about?
I'll give you an example. There's examples like this that go on for decades. But David Fravor, the encounter that took place, it's now commonly referred to as the Nimitz case. It was off the coast of San Diego in 2003. And he chased this Tic Tac looking object. It had no wings, no propulsion. It could hover. It was hovering right over the ocean. He could see it down below. There was 2 military jets that saw it. Got 4 people that got visual. Then it picked up on the radar, and they chased after it. And as they were close, the object was down just above the ocean surface, and it was darting around kind of like this. And Fravor said he was going to get a closer look at it at whatever altitude he was. So he started spiraling down to get a closer look at it. Jesus. And the Tic Tac object starts spiraling up. So it was mimicking his movement, but backwards. So he's spiraling down, it's spiraling up, and then he decides to kind of do a maneuver and intercept it, like cut it off. He gets right at it. He goes, this is about a quarter of a mile, and he goes, that sounds kind of far away, or half a mile, whatever it is, but in flight, it's very close.
Yeah.
No rivets, no seams, like what is this thing? And then he said it took off like impossible. Like this, it did something that's just not even possible. And then it ended up at their, it's a strategic Latin launch that's like predetermined before. I'm trying to think of the technical name they use for that. But in any case, it just showed up right at that exact tactical spot at their Latin launch. It's like, and he said he had like the hair on the back of his neck stand up straight because that was like it. Basically, like I'm 5 steps ahead of you guys. Like, I even know where your Latin launch is,
man.
Yeah. So, and again, I could give you example after example.
For sure. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
That's just one.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So what do you think are like the implications on like day-to-day kind of like human thinking and affairs? Say it's just like it's proven without any sort of doubt or whatever. It's proven that there is like life forms that just dwarf our kind of technology and understanding of the universe. What do you think that does to human beings? Think that's a good, or you think that'll like spin people out, or maybe make us be a little nicer knowing we have like other life forms watching us?
Yeah. I think I always felt that it would be a little scary, right? But that's okay. I mean, reality's reality. It's been going on for a long time. It doesn't seem to be here to hurt us because others might argue with me on that point. But for the most part, it seems to be a fairly benign. I mean, there are other aspects of the phenomenon that one might argue is a little scary, but whatever. That's a whole nother
Well, I would argue. I would argue. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's okay. Yeah, please.
I would argue if they're that advanced, there's a huge chance they're not kind of like predacious and like, you know what I mean? Because it'd be hard to be that advanced while you're still dealing with kind of like those more animal aggressive kind of instincts.
Yeah.
You think it would implode like human beings? Like if we don't kind of get our kind of aggressive instincts under control, we might like blow ourselves up.
Oh yeah. No, it's really funny actually. To your point. I interviewed this guy, Robert Salas, who was a launch control officer during the height of the Cold War. And I think he was in charge of Minuteman missiles, but they were nuclear arms. And I'm not sure if it was Minot or anyways, one of these bases housing nuclear weapons. And objects were seen over the base, documented over the base. And then all of their vast majority of nuclear weapons went into a no-go situation. They were just shut off. And they're all independently controlled. I report about it in my film, The Phenomenon. And I talked to Salas about this, and it was funny. I could see why he was a launch control officer because he's got this demeanor where he's just like super mellow and calm and just measured and just doesn't, he's like, well, James, the message I got from that is almost like taking matches out of the hands of a baby. Maybe you shouldn't be playing with these things. Yeah. And I was like, wow, never thought of it that way. Wow.
I never heard of that. So they all just deactivated.
Yeah. Oh, there's 50 cases in my film, The Phenomenon. I literally did a deep dive in there with the help of this guy, Robert Hastings, who wrote the book on it. And you'll hear officer after officer after officer about incursions over military bases. They seem to be like some people would put it, like a moth to a flame. Like anytime there's nukes around, the phenomenon kind of just comes around to check it out. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, that's crazy.
Yeah, Senator Harry Reid, former Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, gave me an interview. I think it was like 2019, and he was the one that started this. One of the key people that started this UFO investigation, ATIP, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. Before that, it was OSAP. But in any case, I asked him. It went on for 10 years. It was never meant to go public, but again, people had protested from the inside from excessive secrecy and walked some evidence out of the Pentagon onto the front page of the New York Times. And it went on for 10 years. It was found out in like at the end of 2017. It started around 2008, 2007, something like that. Mm-hmm. And I said, what were some of the more astonishing aspects of the phenomenon that you learned during that 10-year Pentagon investigation? And he goes, right away, just like that. He goes, they're interested in our nukes. And I was like, oh, whoa, I'd heard about that a little bit. So we did a whole segment on it within the phenomenon of
Wow. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. And there are a lot of incursions going on, military bases all over the place still. So I don't know. I think it's a far more complex issue than one might, gather.
Yeah, true.
It just doesn't have like one easy explanation. I've been doing this 30 years and I don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, it's one of those things that does.
I wish I did.
Well, it kind of dwarfs the perceived power of governments, where you're like, the United States, where like we have all these missiles, or like the cutting edge of technology. And then you see something that's so much more advanced. If it's really buzzing around, kind of like it makes the government less authoritative almost. So you're kind of like, all right, dude. Like
I thought it would have a unifying effect on all of humanity, quite honestly. I mean, if there's an outside force, I mean, Reagan had talked about it, but he used it more of his threat. But if you have something I think it would unify us.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I remember interviewing Apollo astronaut Edgar Mitchell, and he was Apollo 14, sixth man to walk on the moon, and he said on the way to the moon, he was so caught up in all the data, and he might as well have been a simulator. But coming back, he got to kind of really just look at the Earth and look at and really feel what he was doing. He was hurling through this little tin can through the vastness of space and darkness. And he goes, "You don't know dark until you've been into space. Like it's a vacuum out there." And he goes, "I looked at Earth and I watched it slowly getting bigger and bigger, and all those invisible lines. I didn't see any territories, and I was imagining all the wars that were taking place and all this." And he really felt, not just saw, but felt like humankind as one race, you know what I mean? One people kind of thing. And I think that this reality will help accelerate that. Yeah, in my opinion.
I think it's a good thing. But you get a lot of people who start being like, they're trying to use this to start up a new world government and blah, 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 blah. And it's like,
I don't think they have control of it. I really don't.
Yeah, I would argue
someone
that.
who's investigated all around the world for 30 years.
There's no way.
I don't think that I think that they're doing what they're doing.
True. And it's one of those things where it's like, if there, say for, argument's sake, say there were some just human beings who are so powerful, they were engineering these kind of crafts. It's like, well, guess what? They're going to do whatever they want, whatever. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's awesome, man. I think it's pretty cool. And I think it is I don't know. I think it's good for people to have kind of shocks to their system. And I think the UAP kind of like reality of other life forms is a good shock to the system in a way.
I mean, if you look at the program, you'll see, refreshingly, you'll see a bipartisan effort. You'll see Democrats and Republicans working together, being civil, and like really trying to get to the bottom of it. And I love that.
Yeah.
About that, it's uniting Congress and our elected officials, no question about it. You're looking at AOC with Tim Burchett being really kind to each other and calling each other colleagues, and it's very. Yeah, I love that. I think we need more of it.
Yeah, because you can get so into your like hometown versus a country. You're like ants on a hill. You're like, this is this huge place. Then you get a cosmic perspective, and you're like,
right?
Oh, fucking that's nothing.
They should send all politicians into space.
They should. That'd be awesome. Or just give them a ton of LSD.
There you go. Either or.
Sure.
Is it possible that this is it's us, but an ancient civilization, like if Elon Musk or Bill Gates, if something happened now, they would just go into their bunkers, and they have huge bunkers, and their civilization would grow for thousands of years. And everybody else on top, we decelerate and we become back to cavemen. And now 12,000 years later, they're finally coming to the surface again. But it's us, just a more advanced civilization that was able to keep going.
I've heard that theory, and one of the things that I'm coming to terms with is that all options are on the table as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I've heard interdimensional, I've heard future, coming back from the future. I've heard interplanetary. I've heard they're right here all along, down in our oceans and in specific locations around the world. And I can't say no to any of them. I have to keep all options on the table. And at one point jokingly says, "I'm a huge universe." I said, maybe it's all the above. Maybe it's not just one race. Maybe it's a number of different things. It's one of the reasons why I showed some incredible Hubble telescope photography from space and galaxies. And one photograph in particular from NASA is they look like almost stars. There's so many of them, but then you realize they're not stars. You're looking at galaxies, and each one of those galaxies has like 400 billion stars, right? And it's like, and you're looking at all these pinpoints of light, and those are all galaxies, and you're thinking, you got to be kidding me. That's just incomprehensibly big, right? It's like, and we're just like, there's more stars. There's 10,000 times more stars than there are grains of sand on all the beaches in the world. It's like 10,000 times.
So you can't even wrap your head around it.
And it's getting bigger by the day. And now they're talking about multiverses and stuff. It's like, God only knows, man. Like, sometimes it's like, my mind hurts thinking about it. Like, I don't know, man. Sometimes when I think about the vastness and like how it keeps going on, and if it's not infinite, then where does it stop?
Well, this is the thing that fucks me up. It has to be infinite, because if it were to stop, it could only stop by a sort of border. There'd have to be something on the other edge of the border, so it has to be by definition infinite.
So insane.
The universe really is like ruled by like dream logic. That's the only place a thing can be infinite and non-infinite is in a dream. Don't get me started, dude. I was freaking out in the Uber last night.
It blows my mind. Seriously, I'm just like,
But you know what I'm talking about, though? It has to be infinite, because if it were finite, there'd be a bordering edge, and there'd have to be some physical thing on. You can't have something that borders that doesn't have another side of it. So it can't be It has to be infinite. Otherwise,
I remember one time thinking to myself, like, I have no idea why I'm here. What the hell's going on?
I do that every day.
I don't think we're here to hate each other.
yeah,
That's one thing I feel like, come on.
yeah. Well, it doesn't feel good in your body. That's what I've been doing. It's like people say, like, this is crazy. It's all airy fairy talk. It's like, well, dude, if you like just assume we're these kind of like struggling animals with nothing other than animal instincts, and our whole sense of consciousness is like, just wafting off these. It's just like this nonsense that's wafting off our instincts. It's like, to take that worldview it literally hurts your body.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I agree with you, man.
Right?
I think if you kind of open yourself up to like the kind of cosmic scale, becoming basically like a cosmic patriot rather than your country, or people will be mad at me for that. Like, ooh, but you can like your country, but also be like, I'm also a citizen of the universe. Just
Absolutely.
opening yourself up to that scale feels good.
I remember asking Edgar Mitchell. It was really funny because we're in the middle talking about UFOs, and he like kind of grew up in Roswell, the surrounding areas, and so he knew all the ranchers from back in the late 40s, early 50s, actually even earlier than that. And I was like, God, I'm so sorry to ask this question of you, because I'm sure you get asked this all the time. What was it like to go to the moon? And he's like, well, James, if you'd like, I'll tell you, and so I got such a detailed description of what it was like, right down to when they landed on the lunar surface. They were hearing these meteorites pelting the skin of their craft, and they've been up basically for 3 days. And NASA's like, you guys need to go to sleep, and they were like, oh no, man, I want to. They tried to go to sleep, and then they were too excited. They were like, told NASA, we're overriding your recommendations. We're putting our suits on. We're going.
Wait, so they were up for 3 days straight, and they were just like,
yeah, they couldn't sleep. They were on the lunar surface, and he said they put their suits on, and they went out there, and he's walking around the lunar surface, and he says he sees off in the distance this blue marble. I love sharing this story because it's so crazy. This blue marble suddenly rise. It was an Earthrise from the moon. And he said there it was, this oasis of life, suspended in the darkness of space, the vacuum of space, such a hostile environment around it, right? And there it rose, and he had these big gloves on, and he put up one hand, and he blocked out the entire Earth, right, from the lunar surface. And he's like, all that I know, all that I've learned, all the borders, all the people, and I'm blocking it out with one hand.
Damn.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Wait, so the Earth rises when you're on the moon?
Yeah,
Kinda
he
like
said it
the
was an
sun?
Earthrise. Yeah, it was an Earthrise. Yeah, isn't that
so fucking
crazy?
Cool. That's so cool.
Yeah, and he was like, it was like a blue marble. Like he said, it's suspended in a vastness. He goes, you don't understand the vacuum of space until you've been there. Like, it's dark, it's hostile, and there's this oasis, this life oasis. And yeah, it's really.
It does suck, and it sucks to waste it just being
Oh my gosh,
fucking miserable dick.
It's all we got.
I know, and I'm guilty of that. I can be a miserable dickhead, but it's like, it really is, especially when you look at it. It's like, if you look at the scale, and then you get into like the math behind, like, what are if they go, all right, it all happened by chance. Well, what is like the mathematical probability of that? And it's like literally, if you were a math person, you'd be like, well, yeah, my own math proves that this happening for no reason is so statistically improbable.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and they go, well, it's just because the universe is infinite and that anything can happen. It's like, okay, like, all right, yeah, that's cool.
I wonder sometimes if we just like, I used to think back when I first started this, because I was like, I would go into the field. I wouldn't just read books or go to conferences. I would actually go to locations and meet with witnesses on UFO sightings all over the place. And so I knew the phenomenon was real. I mean, unless everybody I was talking to, including pilots and FAA officials and civilians and governors, all lying, I was like, well, maybe, it's such a big universe. It's, the galaxy, whatever, Milky Way, we probably just get periodic visitation for whatever reason. The governments decide to cover it up. That's what I thought. Sure. But now, all these years later, I'm like, oh my gosh, now I feel like I know less today than I did when I started.
Yeah.
Because like you said, like, could it be time travelers? Yes, it could. Could it be interdimensional? Yes, it could. Could it be interplanetary? Sure could. Why not? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Tucker Carlson now is like,
he's freaked out.
He's big on the interdimensional thing.
I'm done.
Yeah, he's like out of nowhere.
He tapped out.
He got off of Fox, and he was just, next thing you know, it was just like, there's interdimensional entities, blah, blah, blah. And everyone's like, what the fuck, dude?
Yeah, no, he tapped out.
What do you mean he tapped out?
He's not doing the UAP anymore.
He just doesn't even want to talk about
it. He learned certain things, and he's like, we're done. I'm not doing this. And it's funny actually because one of the things that Senator Harry Reid said to me was that they were just trying to get some of these senators to look at the data, look at the evidence, and they were so dismissive of. They said it's demonic. And I'm not going to engage with that. So because they couldn't explain it, or for whatever reason, it was just written off. So there's that wing of the elected officials that have looked at it like that way. I don't know if they're still looking at it that way, but they were like, it's demonic, and we don't want anything to do with it. I'm not even going to look at it.
Damn.
That's what he told me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even people within the Pentagon saying that.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense especially if you're like an older man, and typically politicians, and I would say even more so like military people. A lot of them are sort of kind of like a rigid, kind of like insulated, and like not like they're not saying like they're egoic, but it is like they have a very kind of top down way of thinking, and like stuff like this is just like there's no time for it.
One of the people in the part of the UAP task force, I'm not sure what year he was involved, but his name is Lenval Logan, great guy, and. He goes, it's crazy. He goes, we pick up a Russian MiG or something on the radar, and it's all hands on deck. And yet, when it doesn't have any markings on it, we can't identify it. It's like nothing to see here, folks. It's like he's like, well, how could that be? What? Like if it had a Russian flag or a Chinese flag, it would be all hands on deck.
Yeah.
But because it doesn't have that, it's flying rings around. We can't stop it, control it, whatever. It's like nothing to see here, folks. Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of nuts.
That's what he said. Yeah.
So there's got to be some sort of directive. Like I said, if you're military, there's rules for everything. So to be like, we'll get that.
He's
later,
like, how can that be? I was like, it's a great quote. It's one of the quotes at the end in the credit. I always like to, when I'm editing a film, I'll get a lot of what I call GMs or golden moments, and I always paint those. I color those like a gold color. And then I put them, if I can't find a place for them in the movie, I tuck them aside in my GM, basket. And then at the end of the film, I'll go, oh God, can I squeeze these in somewhere? And if I can't squeeze them in, one time I was like, why don't I just sprinkle them throughout the credits? So now I always love doing that. What I'll do is I'll get my little GMs, and that moment with Lenval Logan, who's part of the UAP task force, is sprinkled in the credits at the end. So
that's awesome.
If you do watch the program, watch it all the way through the end, because there's lots of cool stuff sprinkled throughout the credits.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, isn't that fun?
That is a good idea.
Yeah.
Damn, man. So we'll wrap this up. I think this has been awesome, by the way. Thank you.
Oh, cool. Thanks.
My question is, so say if somebody, the biggest doubting Thomas, or one of the, if someone pretty close-minded is like, I don't even want to think about this stuff. Do you have like one kind of like silver bullet you'd be like, check this out? Or would you just?
I would have to say that if you watch the program and you still think there's nothing to it, I think that's going to be nearly impossible. Damn. I really do.
Okay.
Just because of the bipartisan effort, the congressional hearings, people testifying under oath, some of the video photographic cases and radar. And look, the DOD's, begrudgingly admitting that the phenomenon's real. They're not lying anymore about that.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they're trying to control how this stuff comes out, but it's happening. It's coming out. Okay, so one can speculate all day long as to where it's coming from and what's its objective or agenda. That's up for speculation, but the phenomenon is real, and it defies a conventional explanation.
Awesome. Dude, thank you so much, James.
Appreciate
Thanks
it.
for doing this, man.
Of course.
Watch the program. Thank you, James.
Of course.
Later on.